To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to welcome Lauren Leader, who is an activist and the author of a book called Crossing the Thinnest Line. Good to see you, Lauren.
Thanks for having me.
What's the premise of this book?
The premise of the book is that we need a better, more meaningful conversation about diversity in America. It is the most important national treasure that we have as a nation. It confers incredible economic and social benefits, and we have been locked for generations in an intractable battle over whether or not we are going to really fully embrace the diversity of our nation and benefit in all of the ways that we could, and or whether we're going to fight it. And I really set out to try to bring a more meaningful conversation, to lay out both the economic and the social case for why the nation's diversity is such a treasure and why it enriches us so much in so many ways.
Excuse me. Is it harder to do that today than ever? And if so, why?
You know, what I've been saying about the current climate is that it's like a funhouse mirror. It warps and exaggerates some of the worst of us and in some ways minimizes the best of us. There's no question that we are in an incredibly divisive and difficult time, that some of the deepest hatred and anger in American society has been amplified. You know, we've seen a huge spike in hate crimes, 57% increase in hate crimes just in the last few years.
More anti-Semitism than ever before?
Absolutely. There's no question that these things have been amplified in very disturbing and upsetting ways. And of course, you know, police brutality and, you know, racial discrimination and just, you know, the mass incarceration crisis, all of these things are real. And in many ways, and I think the data supports it, America is more inclusive than it's ever been. 65% of Americans, 6 in 10 Americans, say that the diversity of America enriches our society, that it makes it stronger and better. A majority of Americans support immigration reform. I mean, we are more welcoming, inclusive, and tolerant than we have ever been. And yet we also have this very ugly other side.
You know,
they're both real.
It would be easy, and a lot of folks in the media simply go to this quickly, but it would be easy to say, this is, quote unquote, President Trump contributing heavily to this, and it's largely his fault. I don't buy it, and I don't know if you do, because this polarization, this division, actually we have our friend Steve Kornacki from MSNBC who wrote a wonderful book on this. He'll be with us today as well. Yeah. He said it started back in the 90s with Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. And that was politically, but you're talking racially, socially, economically,
culturally. Well, it goes back to the founding of our nation. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, our nation was founded on slavery and built on segregation. I mean, we have never come fully to terms with some of the deep issues in our nation. You know, we passed the Civil Rights Act in 1968. We pushed, you know, through all the right things and integrated the schools and integrated the country, but we never really have dealt with the deep-seated underlying hatred and racism that has been there all along. I do think that there are roots in the political process that go back, actually I would go back even further. I go back to the Reagan years and the rise of evangelical Christianity as a political force, which absolutely did start to polarize Americans around a series of social issues. But there's no question, look, LBJ called it in 1968. He knew that in passing the Civil Rights Act—
64, I just want to be clear.
64, excuse me. In 1964, he knew that he would lose, that Democrats—
The South was gone.
Would lose the South was gone, and that those racial lines would be permanently solidified in politics, and I think that's turned out to be true.
But here's the other part of it. I think a lot of folks would agree with what you're saying, but there would be questions that would be raised in this regard. What about those who happen not to be African American, who happen not to be people of color, who feel disenfranchised, who happen to be white, who happen to be working class, who happen to live in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Jersey, wherever, you know, Michigan, who were drawn to Donald Trump or someone like Donald Trump, if there's such a entity, because they felt no one would connect with their pain. And how do we balance talking to them, connecting with them, caring about them, and dealing with the issues that you raised, which are so legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, and I feel a deep sense of
They're not mutually exclusive.
They're absolutely not mutually exclusive, but we do have a political discourse that has created this narrative of the other, which is a false one.
Like, who are you with, us or them?
Yeah, or that you're suffering, your economic woes are due to the immigrants that came to this country, and that's who's to blame. And it's just factually incorrect and completely false, and it creates this It deepens divisions that were there all along. I mean, leadership does matter. And we see that throughout history. Leadership does matter. People are inspired in negative and positive ways. I think that overwhelmingly, and I think the data supports this, the vast majority of Americans do support an inclusive society. We have the vast majority of Americans support gay rights, support equal rights for, minorities, believe in equal opportunity, believe in that sort of fundamental of what we all think of as the American dream.
And believe that women have gotten the short end of the economic
stick.
I'm
not sure people see that. No, I'm not sure people see that. In fact, most of the data actually shows that people overestimate how well women are doing in the American economy. And by the way, we are doing very well. So women are now 38%.
Some women.
Well, so women are now there's two sides of the coin. Women are 38% of the primary breadwinners in America. They're rising in the corporate ranks. We're the majority of the college degree holders. We're now becoming 50 to 60% of the corporate workforce, 30% of the pipeline just before leadership. However, on the flip side, women are also still the majority of the minimum wage earners in this country. And that's part of what drives the massive wage gap, right? We still have just huge numbers of women. 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence, and 70% of Americans in poverty are women and children. That's an incredible dichotomy, and we've got to address it.
And I want to give you a chance. Can we put up the website right now for All In Together? As we put up the website, people can check it out. Please tell us what it is and why it matters.
Yeah. So we founded All In Together in 2014 to be we are one of the only nonpartisan women's political and civic education organizations. We train women all over the country on how to have a voice on the issues that matter in their lives and how to participate in the political process. We obviously want to see more women running for office, but even for those that won't, the essence of democracy is the right of citizens to petition the government for their grievances. We do not see enough women standing up to advocate for the issues that affect their lives. And it's part of why we see, we're so far behind other countries in terms of women's political representation. The U.S. is 96th in the world for the political representation and participation of women. It's unacceptable, and we're trying to fix it.
Well, I wish we had more time, but I want to thank you for joining us. You have a powerful message. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.